Well, I'd
Oh,
say if you're like me, your phone is filled with pictures of orchids. Unfortunately, my pictures are not really as good as Tyler's or as good as my phone can take. So I'm looking forward to figuring out how to kind of up my photography game here.
yes. And I that is a good segue. So I'm gonna share my screen and um start my presentation. Okay. Let's see. Got my dual monitors here, which is nice too about presenting in my home office. Um, okay, so iPhone orchid photography. So I'll just start out by saying I'm not a professional. This is I know there are some members of the society who um are have professional photography backgrounds and have really nice cameras and that's great. But sometimes when you are a novice and you ask people like that advice, sometimes they get too in the details. So I've kind of a, I'm approaching this as kind of like a beginner level. A lot of my photography, I've kind of it's picked up by trial and error. I am a graphic designer by trade, so I pick up the software pretty good, and I've owned a DSLR camera before, but I I just found it so like hard to carry around, and then I would have to get my digital card and take it out of the camera and sit at my desk and then go through tons of pictures and then edit them. And I just kind of lost interest because there's too many steps. But with I really enjoy phone photography because it phones have come a long way from when I first had a digital camera that was like 15 years ago. They take much better pictures than a big clunky thing with lenses. So that, and I can edit like professional editing software right on my phone, which you could not do not too long ago. Um, so I'm going to show you what I know and kind of just take that with a grain of salt. Like I'm sure there's people that know more, but hopefully you can learn something. And I'm continually learning myself. So um, I want to just start out by going through some pictures that I took. I haven't put any names on them, but just to give you an idea of the pictures that are they're capable of capturing on a phone, which are pretty good. Obviously, you've to see the black background, I think is key to orchid photography. It's not necessarily better than natural outside or against a white background. I actually started out taking photos of my blooming orchids in my upstairs bathroom because it had really good natural light, and I put them up against my white door. But you get a lot better contrast with flowers on a black background because orchids are typically, pink, white, yellow, bright colors. There are a few black orchids, which I think a lot of those catasetum that are they're black have been hard to photograph for these like AOS photographers because they're not used to photographing against a different color background. But
So do you have a sheet or a curtain or something or a black painted something?
I will get into all of that. That's what this presentation is about. So I'm just going to go through a few photos. I think um, these these last ones I just took this last week. I think And at the end of this presentation, I'm also going to go and do a demo. So I want to go through these slides pretty quick, but of course, if something's not clear, or if I'm confusing you, just raise your hand or speak up. So first section is, what equipment do you need? So great question, Steve. First, a phone. Great, because most of you already have phones with pretty nice cameras. And the great part about the smartphones is they have the ability to can't have a camera, and you can edit and you can share stuff. So whether it's social media or just texting to a friend or emailing, you can do it all from the palm of your hand. I have an iPhone 14 Pro. Sounds pretty professional, but it's really not. It's one of the higher end ones that has the 3 cameras, which is great. We've got a 2-year-old, and my wife and I sprung for the more expensive cameras. So think about that next time you're upgrading. If you don't have one of the nicer cameras, sometimes, if you compare it to, well, I could buy a $1,500 camera, or I could spend a couple $100 and get the nicer phone when I'm upgrading next. So mine's 2 years old already, but it still takes really great photos. So lighting setup, this is called softbox lighting. I got mine for about $70. What you want is soft diffuse lighting, so not spotlights, small bright lights, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But and you also want to look for CRI bulbs. I'm not even sure what that stands for, but if you're searching online for them, that means that they're a neutral color. So a lot of times, if you're photographing in your house, you're going to be photographing under like yellow or warm lighting. These are very neutral and not warm or cool. They're special for photography. So tripods are also nice to position your lighting. And then a black backdrop. So you can get these for about $30. Polyester fabric is the most common. That's what I have. It stays pretty wrinkle free, which is nice. It's not the best. I guess premium velvet is the best, and you can get that at like fabric stores. You don't want the stretchy velvet or the cheaper velvet, premium velvet. So you want something low sheen. And then clips at your house, you can probably set something up on your curtain. Or if you want, you can buy them with a stand, which I did. And I'll show you that. So another one is stool. So this is where you can set your plant on. I started out by not having a stool, and I used like an upside down pot, but I found myself like always on the ground so low. So having something to keep it up, and you want a small footprint as well. So you want it compact, so when you're shooting down, you're not getting a corner of a table or something.
Is Karen there?
And then
on the phone in the library.
A black drape you can put over your stool to kind of use the same effect as the black backdrop. So that is percent black.
Sorry.
Sitting at the table and I farted, and I went into the bathroom and my underwear was bloody.
So I think somebody's not on. Is that clip? So apps for photography and editing. The app that I use is called Pro Camera, and that's for iPhones. And basically, you're just looking for something that gives you manual controls. And this is different than your manual controls on your native iPhone camera app. So you're looking for white balance is a really important one, shutter speed, ISO, and the ability to shoot in RAW. And I'm going to get into this on a couple other slides, but I guess Android has a pro mode that's already free, but basically you just switch over to that. And if you can see this image, you've got your MF is manual focus, WB is white balance, and then on my app, that's manual mode. So I'll demo this, but so I mentioned RAW. So RAW is an uncompressed and unprocessed image. So JPEGs were made to be small in file size, and so here's some examples of the difference. Raw file size is about 5 times as big, but if you shoot in JPEG and say this cliff down here, the black on the cliff is underexposed, and even when you edit it, you're not going to get that same detail. But if you shoot in RAW, you can bring back that detail because it's ingrained in that like digital negative. Same with color. A lot of color is lost in digital photography, especially in like sunsets. You can bring out that color that is lost in JPEGs. So I'll give you some more examples too. Lightroom. So this is the editing app that I recommend. It's by Adobe. It's actually free. There's a free version that has some limitations, but none that I'm going to even get into. So the free version works great for editing raw images. So that's the photography industry standard app. I have a paid version because I have an Adobe subscription through work and they pay for it. But I rarely use any of the like paid features. There's other apps that do similar things, but this is the one I recommend. So basic photography, this is the kind of hard part of this presentation because I'm not the best person to teach this as I'm not a professional photographer, but these 3 things, shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, are all connected in what's called an exposure triangle. So if you bring one up, it affects the other 2. And I'll kind of try and explain that in a little more detail. So shutter speed, you've got high speeds. This chart is good. So fast speeds, you've got 1/8,000th of a second, and then it goes all the way down to 30 seconds. So that's the amount of time that your camera is open to light. So something just to be aware of, but I recommend like 1/125th of a second for handheld. Anything below that, I know it says differently here. You should use a tripod if you want really crisp images. And when you go into manual mode, you'll have a better idea of this. But so ISO is basically how sensitive your camera is to light, the image sensor. So up in the top left on the trees, this is a low ISO, so that it's a darker image. And the higher ISO is a lighter image. But with that, the lower ISO is going to have higher quality, whereas a higher ISO, you can use it in lower light situation, but it gets real grainy and what's called noise. So the important part for iPhone photography is you want to just shoot on the lowest possible ISO that you can get away with. So aperture is another one. It's represented in number like f4 or f22. So you see these flower photos. and that is corresponds with depth of field. So a low number is going to be a short depth of field. So you get a very blurry background and only a certain distances in focus, whereas f22 is a very high ISO or high aperture. So you higher depth of your longer depth of field, more stuff is in focus in the foreground and the background. And then this is a part of the triangle, but focal length is something that's also important to mention. So that's 50 millimeter. Often lenses, people say I have a 50 millimeter lens. Basically, that's your field of view. So this picture kind of illustrates that. The pink one in the middle, you've got a very skinny field of view, but it goes farther. So that's a 135 millimeter is going to be pretty far away, but you're going to be very narrow. Whereas something on the other end, 16 millimeter, you're going to have more field of view, but typically closer stuff to focus. That is a very, very general term, and I could probably I'm probably not explaining it very well, but not very important. The important part is knowing what your phone has. So the reason there's 3 lenses is because there's 3 different millimeter, right? So you've got an ultra wide, which is represented on your phone as 0.5 times. Different phones have different, probably very similar when they have multiple cameras. They're fixed prime lenses. So that this one is an f2.2, which is pretty low number. So it's a pretty shallow depth of field, but I don't fully understand this, to be honest, because it's a tinier version basically of a bigger camera. So I think that's why they use 0.5 1 times, 2 times rather than the millimeter. But in manual mode, you can switch to those different lenses. Whereas in your regular iPhone app, it kind of switches for you based on what you're pointing at. So that's the hard part. It's easier to demonstrate a lot of this stuff, how those interact with each other, if you're unfamiliar. So if you didn't get that, that's okay. Shooting techniques. So controlled lighting is very, very, very important. So a lot of the orchid photography that I see it's in your house. So a lot, like I was saying earlier, in your house on the left, a lot of times you have warm light. So you get this kind of yellowish hue, which looks normal to your eye until you put it next to something that was corrected for white balance or in natural light, where this is a white phalaenopsis and it looks actually white. Where here you can tell, especially next to this other one, it's getting that yellow color. So you want to avoid also strong light. So spotlights. This is an example of a subject. It's not a flower, but a person who's on the left is they have soft lighting that's probably diffused by holding up a diffuser above them. And then the one on the right, they don't have that, and they've got direct sun and shade from the branches of the tree, creating that like uneven light. So the same applies with flowers. You don't want that harsh light. You want soft light. So light coming from a wider area and through a white screen is going to create a better picture. So a lot of times you see the AOS photographers at shows or at meetings, and they're saying, well, where do you want to set up? This is a lot of people think, oh, this is a nice bright spot. This would be good for photographing. And they're like, no, 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 we want to go in the back dark corner. It's because they want controlled lighting. They have their own lights. They don't want any other lights to be mixed with their environment. So shooting in dark is best. So white balance, again, back to white balance. This is very important for accurate color. So the Pro camera has auto white balance, which works okay. There's also iPhone apps that you can download that I've purchased, and they work okay. They're gonna kind of tell you what light you're in, but it's not extremely accurate. There's also gray card calibration that you could look into if you're really struggling with this, where you have a 18% shade of gray and you hold it in front of your camera, and there's actually a white balance designed for holding that card that will calibrate the white balance to a neutral light. So shooting in RAW will allow for better color correction in post-production. If you don't have RAW, it's even more important to shoot JPEGs or when you're shooting JPEGs or HEIC, which is the file format for iPhone. It's more important to adjust your white balance in camera before you photograph the orchid. You can, if you're shooting in RAW, you can color correct it a bit better, a lot better than JPEG. And I have an example of that. It's in a couple slides, but so another shooting technique is staging. There's a lot of different ways to shade. I say the most important
So,
part.
Tyler, could I ask you, is there a RAW setting on the phone?
There is, and when I do my demo, I'll show you that.
Okay,
But
good.
you might just find out what your phone is and Google, does my phone shoot RAW? And you may or may not have the ability, but it's not the end of the world if you can't. It's just more important to adjust that white balance in camera before you shoot rather than try and adjust it after when you're editing. Lighting. So the important part here is that you want distance between your subject and the black background. I see a lot of people kind of drape the end of the fabric and then put it kind of right in front of the black background. If you're too close, a lot of times you're gonna the light is gonna illuminate off of that black backdrop a little bit too much, and you're not gonna get that pure black background that is ideal. So I use two lights typically. I've seen some people use three. There's a lot you can do. I think it depends on the subject, the flower. You just kind of have to experiment really for best results, and I'm still figuring that out myself, but that's kind of the part of the fun of it. So composing is also another element. You want to think about what is it, portrait or landscape. You want to turn your phone rather than cropping it afterwards, because when you crop, you're essentially just reducing the resolution. Same with when you're zooming in on your phone. That's the same thing as cropping. So that's why switching between lenses is important rather than just kind of basically cropping the image by zooming in. A tripod also helps to compose your subject. So that's an item I didn't list on the necessary things, but because you can handhold and get pretty accurate, but it's kind of nice to have a tripod so you can make small adjustments. I've found it's just a little more setup. So editing is the last section, and I believe so. Color correction again is I'm hitting home on this because it's very important for orchid photography. Is only expect accurate results when color correcting raw files. So this is a really good example. Here you've got a wine cellar and they've got really warm lights, really yellow tinted lights. So if you take a raw file, a picture in raw, and then correct the white balance, you can achieve this middle one. So the way they do that is actually this whiteboard is they know is pure white. So they're saying they corrected it by using that a tool in Lightroom where you can just select pure white and it automatically turns the whole image like this. So you're getting an accurate color. But if you shoot the same image in JPEG and use that same technique, you get this result. So this is kind of the difference between RAW and JPEG. The raw image is more like a negative, whereas a JPEG's kind of like a flat compressed image. So for best results, I've found that editing your photos or when you're trying to correct the colors and make it accurate is to be in a dark room. Don't be in your living room next to your reading lamp that's probably a very yellow color, because your eyes are going to play tricks on you. So turn off all the lights. I sometimes, because I'm on my phone, I'll do it in bed, and when I'm going to sleep, I'll re-look at stuff I'm editing, and I'll be like, whoa, that looks way different than I thought it looked when I was editing it in my living room. So I try and be in a dark area. Also, it's important, turn up the brightness on your phone. So you make sure you're looking at the most detail. So 80% to 100%, depending on how dark of a room you're in. So quality over quantity. I know when I'm taking photos of my kid or my dog, I'm snapping away. I don't really worry about how many I'm taking, but when you're doing a flower photograph, really try to compose it and just take a couple of good ones. Get the lighting just right. Look at it closely. If it's not good, delete it. It's good to do that, especially when you're shooting raw, because the file size are so big. And then light. So I've kind of put some animated GIFs over here of the Lightroom editing software. So down here at the bottom, you'll see light, color, and so on, all the tools. Usually you start with light when you're editing. You can adjust the exposure slightly to make sure that the lightest color is not pure white. And then the darkest color of the flower should not be pure black, but you do want the background pure black. So you want to adjust those light levels slightly, and I'll show you how to do that. Then the background, of course, should be 100% black. I went over that. If your lighting is too close or you're having trouble getting that 100% black, try and move away from the backdrop a little bit further and angle your lights kind of more inwards and not straight at the backdrop. And then Adding a vignette also is sometimes good when you're photographing a flower. I'll show you what that is, but I think I have a slide for that actually. So color, again, the Kelvin meter takes the guesswork away. So you can look at the number down here. You can see that's the temperature. It's 4,700 Kelvin. Really, the neutral, I believe, is 5,500. So if you have really good lights that are like 95 CRI, you're gonna get the most accurate pictures. My lighting, I've got for $60 on Amazon, so it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than my living room lighting. That's pretty yellow. When you're adjusting the vibrance, a lot of times, especially when you're shooting raw, you're going to lose a little bit of color, so it's good to punch it up to like +10, and then the saturation no more than +5. And this isn't like trying to make my flowers prettier than they actually are. I'm trying to get accurate representation always. A lot of times when you're shooting on an iPhone, it takes a second, but they pre-edit your photos for you. So this is really just manually doing that on your own. Cropping. So you want to stick, typically I recommend sticking with standard sizes. If you see down in the lower left of the phone here, you can click on that button and it brings up a whole bunch of common sizes. So 4x3, 1x1, 7x5, 8.5x11. So if you're shooting to share on social media, they restrict it to a certain size. That's 4x3, either horizontal or vertical, portrait or landscape. But just be aware of that. I think I recommend always choosing something rather than just freestyling how you crop. It's better to shoot too much than to clip parts of the subject. So I noticed when I was taking pictures handheld, a lot of times, when I'm kind of getting in close, I'd accidentally clip off a part of the pedal, and then I'd go back and I'd be like, after I cleaned up all my gear or ran out of time, and then that photo's unusable. So crop it out. You want to make sure you're getting all of the flower, is the most important part. If you crop in a little bit, it's better than getting too close and not capturing the whole flower. Vignette I mentioned before, but if you see in the phone screenshot, I'm adjusting the vignette. That's basically kind of like a shadow that takes away counter distracting lines or points of interest. So specifically in like flower photography, I think this is really helpful to like bring attention to the flower and not the leaves, which may be bright green and kind of distracting. And then detail. This is not really too important. I would just say when you're doing it, make sure you're zooming in on Zoom, on the Zoom platform here. It doesn't have very high quality video, so you're probably not even going to see it anyways. I wouldn't mess with this too much, but you can sharpen your images a little bit, and it just makes it that much better on the edges, a little bit crisper on the edges. It's hardly noticeable though. Okay, so now I am going to demo. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to unplug my second monitor because let's see. And then I'm gonna put my headphones in. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's see here.
No, we don't have
I'm
your
gonna
screens
go
open.
in. You don't? Okay,
Not your phone screen.
not my phone screen?
Right.
We just see you.
Okay. Uh-oh. Um, let's see. Let me try it again, just to. Okay. Hmm. Bear with me here. I thought this was going to work seamlessly, but apparently not. Into the same networks and that. Okay. Okay. Actually, this might work. Mhm. Okay. Is that working?
That did it. That did it.
Okay. Sweet. Um, so I'm going to open the Pro Camera app. Okay. And you guys are seeing through my phone now, so
Yes.
it's gonna be a little shaky, but I am walking into my other room. This is my laundry room. I've got my photo studio set up. So I don't know if it's better if I turn it this way. Is that a little bit bigger on your screen? I'm not sure.
Much better.
Okay. Um, so I've got my black backdrop. Kind of walk around. Excuse my mess, but I'm also, I think, in manual focus, so I'm going to switch. Let's see here. I think just for this, I'm just going to go to my regular camera. So I've got my studio here. I've got this. It's got like a tripod back here, holding up that. I mean, I'm reaching out here, so it's a little lower than me. So it's not that big of a fabric. And then these are the softbox lighting I use. I've got a tripod set up. I've got this great orchid that's in bloom. So let's see. I am going to put my phone in a tripod here, and here you see I've got the three lenses, the 0.5, the 1, and if I hit this again for a few times, it'll go to the 2 times, and then up here 3 is the telephoto. So these all kind of have a slightly different white balance too, as you notice, different color. So here's kind of where I wanted to figure out what lens do I want to use, what staging, is the lighting good? So I think I'm first going to just try the 3 times, and I'm going to try and get a little bit closer. So I've noticed with this lens, you have to be about 18 inches away to really be in focus. So I'm just zooming in using 2 fingers standard. So I think I can only get about this close to be in focus with this lens. So I might have to crop post-production But that looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M up here for manual. And then I have two sliders here. The top one is my ISO. So remember, low as possible for the ISO. So you see when I crank the ISO down, my image gets darker. And then the one down here is my my shutter speed. So 1/25th of a second is kind of what I was saying was handheld speed. So I'm on a tripod, so I could actually go lower. And that's one good thing about a tripod, is I can go as low as I need. And I think I'm going to adjust it. I I don't want that like white area to be completely white. Um, I want to be a little bit whiter because it's actually I need to correct the white balance as well, because what I'm seeing is not the color that's on my phone. It's more of like a peach color, peachish orange color. So from here, you see the WB above the M. If I hit that, it's going to bring up the two. The bottom one is the temperature, the Kelvin. So you see that number pops up, 2, 2, 3. If I go down, I'm going to go to about, I think, and from here, this is where I kind of, you want to just make sure it looks the same on the screen as what it looks like in person. So you want to make sure just eyeballing it, I think, is the best way that I've found to do it. And when you're in here, all the lights are off down here in my basement, so that looks pretty accurate. The the black background I can see is not quite black compared to like the UI of the app. So I can switch back to manual, and I can either raise the ISO a bit, or actually, I'm sorry, raise the make it a little bit faster. So that looks pretty good. I'm getting good color. I'm getting a solid black background. Everything looks in focus. So Steve, you were asking about raw. So if I go into my controls here, this is where I would select what I want. So JPEG or Pro Raw and Raw. Pro Raw, I guess, is better, so that's what I use. But that is now going to be an option when I close this out. Oops. So I can turn that off or on right here. HDR, I found, just does better pictures. It processes them a little bit, but it gives a better light balance. So I leave that on. And then you can set up for this button next to the shutter speed, the main button to take the photograph. I've set it up so when I press it, it does a countdown. So when you press the shutter speed or the shutter, if I didn't do that, you can see when I press it, like it jiggles the camera a little bit. So you can set to add that to your UI. You can press this button, and there's an anti-shake, which I've experimented with, that if you don't have a tripod, it would work pretty well. But the best thing is the self timer on a tripod. You can also use like an Apple Watch, I think, to trigger your photo, so you're not actually touching the camera and shaking it. But so from here, I can click this little icon in the lower right and take a look at my picture and zoom in. and it looks like it's in good focus. These lenses do have kind of a shallow depth of field. Like this part, I think is in more focus than this. It's pretty slight, but I think that I'm really happy with that. Like, I don't know that I'd even edit it that much, but let's do another one. So I click the camera in the upper right, and then let's try it with a different lens. So I'm going to switch to this one time. And then if I press it a couple more times, 2 times is 1 and 2 are the actual ones that you want. Notice you can do 3 if you press it again. It does 6, but really it's just cropping in on the image. So I'm going to go to 2 again. And this is, I need to get a little bit closer. So my tripod's not really set up for, it's not a great tripod. So I'm just kind of resting it on top of the tripod, and I'm going to need to adjust the manual settings because it's not as black as I want to be. So I'm going to increase the shutter speed to like 1/1000. So this is pretty fast, so I don't need to worry too much about camera shake. This is probably going to be too dark, but I'll take one pretty dark like this just so I can show you that how we can edit it. And then I'll turn it up a little bit. It's sometimes good to do this too. Just do one that you think is a little bit too light, think is a little bit too dark, and then one that you think is a little just right. So framing looks good. I could probably even get a little closer. Oh, and another thing is the focus. So I didn't touch on this last time, but the MF is manual focus. So as I'm sliding this, I don't know if you can see it very well, but you get kind of like fuzzies where the camera is detecting it's focusing. So I can see a lot on the pedals right now. So I like to do it manually this way, and then I let it go. I go back to manual. The white balance looks good again. So I'll just take a picture, maybe go a little bit brighter too. Okay, so now let's go into the editing. So I'm just going to go back over here, sit on my couch, which is kind of a little bit out of the light, and I'm gonna have to just switch to the portrait mode. And then this is the Lightroom. So I think this one here was the first one that we took, and it looks pretty good. I'm also gonna like turn up my brightness all the way. We can zoom in. The focus looks really good. So it's probably only some light edits. So I'm in color, and then I'm going to actually I start with light. So exposure looks pretty good. I often have a pretty similar thing that I do for most of my photos is exposure. I turn up a little bit. So it's a minor adjustment, and then I turn up the contrast a little bit and the highlights down. Oops, highlights down, because you don't want those highlights being blown out and being 100% white. Shadows, I'll turn a little down. I am losing that dark red tip a little bit to the black background, so I don't want too much. Whites I usually turn down a bit, and then here's if you don't have a solid white background, blacks really only affects what is the darkest parts of the photo. So this is kind of the key element that took me a while to figure out is you just adjust this black, even if it's pretty close. I like to get 100% black. So if you look at this, I typically do keep them all kind of like in a line, going kind of in a downward slope. So exposures to the right, and then black is the farthest to the left. I don't know why that works, but it does. Color, I don't think I'm going to even adjust this one, but you, if I thought it needed a tiny bit of adjusting, I can play around with it. And then if I don't like it, the cool thing is I just double tap it and it brings it back to how it was shot. And that's the same with any of these sliders. So I think maybe it might need a little bit of a tint because now I'm looking at it, it was a little bit like pinker than orange. So that actually looks a little bit more accurate. Then vibrance, I like to turn up just a tiny bit. Saturation, not as much as vibrance, but that's going to help get color. I can double tap this to zoom in. And then another kind of cool thing is if you hold down, it'll go to your original shot and then switch back to your edit. I don't know how good quality the zoom is, so you might not see any difference, but so this is zoomed out, this is not cropped in as much as I like. So now I'll go down to this here at the bottom, and here's what I was talking about. So maybe I want to do one by one. Instagram is made for one by one, but they allow other sizes now. But that looks pretty good. I mean, I kind of like 4x3 because I can just fit the flowers in here bigger, better. So that looks good to me. So I'll hit this check at the bottom right, and then the effects is the vignette. So if I turn it the opposite way, you can kind of see the effect that it has. But basically, there's not really much going on in this except that other leaf. So it's just gonna kind of darken that leaf and put more focus on the flower. So not a great example for this photo, but that's how that works. Detail, honestly, there's 3 different categories. I wouldn't worry too much about this. You can sharpen stuff. I don't know if it's pretty sharp already, but I'm not even going to mess with this on this photo because I think it's really good as is. There's one thing that optics for other phones, this will actually detect what kind of lens you have, and then it will remove the distortion. So in this one, it's extremely minor, but sometimes I just like to do that anyways. And it's going to make it more realistic. So that looks pretty darn good. Now we can look at the other ones. This one is the one that I did that was underexposed. And it's still a great photo, I think. And with RAW, I can definitely edit it. I'm just gonna kind of do the same thing real quick. And then I put my thumb over and press down, and you can kind of see. So decent photo, even though it's underexposed. With RAW, I can pretty much make it how I would have taken it. It'll look pretty much the same as the other ones. But that is the gist. The one last step I want to get into is, so now I have this edited file in RAW in Lightroom. But if I switch over to my photos, like you can see that this one isn't edited and it's not cropped. So and it says RAW up here. What you have to do is go to your Lightroom app, and then in the top here where it has that arrow up in the square, it's like a share icon. You have to do save a copy to device. So it'll save a JPEG, which is a much smaller file size, and then I can go to my photos, and there it is. That's not it, but so that one's raw. It saves it, I think, right after the original one. Raw, raw, raw. This, no. I think actually my iCloud is full, so it may not be updating, or that may be it. That just doesn't look how it was though, right? Interesting. Let me try it again. I think this is it. I don't know what's going on right now, but you for to share your edited photos, you do have to share it. See, I'm getting that message, iCloud, your iCloud storage is full. So I think I'm having some syncing issues. But that's the gist of it. So I hope that you guys picked up some tips and are inspired to kind of experiment yourselves. I'd love to help you learn, and I think that's the great part of this society is we're all here to help each other become better orchid growers, and sharing our secrets and our tips. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. So does anyone have any questions?
Could you put links to those programs that you've used, like the Pro
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, you know what?
the sharpening one?
Yep. You know what I'll do is I've recorded this, so after the program, maybe tomorrow or the next few days, I'll send out a link to the recording of this video, and I'll include links to where you can download these apps.
Oh, good. Is that your work over your shoulder?
No, I got that at Home Goods, I think. This this is our my daughter's little play area. Got a bunch of colored stuff. And I could show my my greenhouse here.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. And if anyone has think of any questions, in the time being, I can answer them in here. It's nighttime in here, so all the lights have turned out, but I can turn them on for the sake of show and tell. Whoa, I just turned one on, but
Oh, yeah.
you can see I've got these over here are 48 by 24-inch shelving. I've got 3 of those, and then 2 on the other side, and then 1 of these like smaller trays. And I built that. In the back is a mounted thing that I just built, and I've also got hoses for drainage. This is a part of our basement where I've got drainage, a deck drain basically in the floor, and I've also got water, a line of water in here. So I've got a humidifier that I never have to refill, So it's pretty dialed right now. I just kind of finished this not too long ago, but it filled up rather quickly.
Mhm. Looks like they like it.
Showed us spigot. He goes with us.
Yeah, got some bloomers here. This is a nice Perseviliana semi-alba that I got from Equigenera Beirut a couple of years ago, I think. It's blooming for the first time. This plant has been really popular. Might be a good segue into show and tell. I think I shared a picture of this in my presentation. I saw this plant in Leonard Gines' greenhouse when he was selling off his collection, and it had a red tag in there and it said "not for sale," and I was like, "Oh darn!" It's a primary hybrid between Laelia bergeri, Rupicus Laelia, and Laelia tenebrosa. And it's got great small star-shaped flowers with just really cool color. And he said, I'm not selling that one, but if you're interested, you know, put your name in there in the tag, and if I ever decide I do want to sell it, I'll get in touch. And sure enough, like 6 months later, he said, "Yeah, I've decided to sell off my collection. So you want that plant?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you." So that was a score, I think. Yeah, well, let me.
Plant individually?
What's that?
Do you water each plant individually, and how often?
Yeah, I do. So this is my watering setup, and I have I fill up this reservoir with my nutrients, and I have a submersible pump, and I have this like it's a mister wand, and I kind of have a spray where it's a kind of like a jet, and I go to each one individually so I don't get too messy, but it's taking forever. So I'm trying to I'm upgrading, I think, to something like this. I've got a bigger or a smaller head, but it's still bigger than what I've got. I haven't received it in the mail yet, but I actually need a bigger pump now or a different hose because the pressure I'm getting with this isn't good enough. So I'm
How often?
trying to figure that out.
Water?
I water about every 10 days right now, to a week. During the summer, probably like once every 4 or 5 days. It gets pretty hot and steamy down here. Yeah. Well,
Do you have a fan to circulate the air?
I do. I've got fans all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're constantly running 24/7. And then I have it's like a bathroom fan. It's like a 6-inch exhaust fan, and that's hooked up to this temperature thing. So when it gets too hot, it sucks air out. It actually blows air in because it's kind of a tent, and then it just basically circulates my basement air, which it works pretty well in the winter and the cooler, but like in the heat of summer, we don't have central AC. We have some like window units, so it gets kind of muggy down in the basement. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But it's worth it for me.
Looks great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm happy to show it off if anybody's coming by to pick up plants or whatnot, or just interested in
And it looks like
coming by.
you're focusing mostly on the cattleyas?
Yeah, big time. I do have a few other, but yeah, I've been kind of narrowing in on Cattleya species and primary hybrids. So I've gotten a lot of like Sunset Valley orchid stuff that I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna sell off during the show just to kind of make room for more of those
Mhm.
species that I'm more interested in now.
Well, the best plants
Um,
I have are ones I've gotten from you, actually.
well, you're gonna be a good
Uh,
customer at the show, I guess.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and pretty soon, like I have some. I like growing big species plant or like specimen plants, but uh, it's hard in the limited space. So I think eventually I'm gonna have to like divide stuff and pare down. I think if you saw my Cattleya intermedia at last year's show was in full bloom. Um, I up potted it. I was tempted to divide it because it was just huge, but now it's taking up pretty much like half of a shelf in there. I'm growing it as big as possible, but I don't know if it's going to be in full flower because it's actually in in flower right now. It's in this like
Mm.
18-inch
Oh
pot,
yeah.
and
Wow.
it's just massive. So um, I don't
What
have
might be
any
done.
room. I don't have any room to make it any bigger, unfortunately. If I had a big greenhouse, I'd probably just keep plants and grow them to be as big as possible. But yeah, I don't for now, at least. Um, well, I'd love to if anybody else has some plants handy, um, I'd love to have a little show and tell. I didn't see anybody. I know Tyler Curry's probably got some. Oh,
I've got a couple, but they're out in the greenhouse and it's slicker than snot to get out there. So I'm gonna leave them out there.
I've got a couple with me in this sunroom right where I am, if you want to see
Oh
them.
yeah.
Okay, hold
yeah,
on.
let me
Yeah.
That was a really really stunning presentation though. I feel like I learned so much and
Yeah.
yeah, don't sell yourself short. I mean it's you're calling it a beginner's presentation, but I felt like it touched on a
Yeah.
lot of really advanced stuff, but you made it approachable. So yeah, good job.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I like geeking out on that kind of stuff, and I'm enjoy sharing. So I hope to keep learning. So maybe in a couple of years I'll have an advanced presentation to share with a real
I'm a
camera.
little terrified by that idea.
Wow, Cliff, look at that.
Yeah. I've got a couple of orchids here. This is the cattleyas with very big flowers, and this is called Sylvia Fry. And it's an AMO, what is it? The American
Eh,
Orchid Society, award. And it grows big flowers. These are about 6 inches across, a lot of color in them. The problem with this, I mean, sometimes they design an orchid that's going to produce large flowers, and these flowers are so big they need to be supported, or they'll break the stems. So I've got they're falling off right now, but so I've got this one that's blooming right now. For some reason this year I got just a ton of orchids that are blooming. I thought it would be a cold year and it would be tough, but let me show you another big orchid. This is called Melody Fair, and this is just a big plant. Pretty easy to grow, blooms every year, and it's got these big white and purple flowers. They're they're about 5 or 6 inches across, and you can see how big the plant is. It's just a big plant. If you have a lot of space, they're kind of fun to grow. And then I have to show you one more because everyone calls this the Christmas orchid, and that's Persiliana. And he bloomed a little late this year, but this is a Cattleya persiliana, very nice orchid. So I've had a lot of everything bloom this winter, even though it's the winter time. I don't know why they do, but well, I've got one other one I'll show you, and you probably all know this one. This is Brassavola nodosa, ladies of the night. Just 4 little flowers that are really quite nice. Anyway, this has been a very good winter for me. A lot of blooms and
Awesome. Is that a Melody Fair Carol clone?
Mary Farrell. Did you say?
Melody Fair Carol, I think is
The
awarded
clone name.
clone. That one was really nice. I like that.
Yeah, I have this. I got another Cattleya trianae that's called Mary Farrell, and it's a darker. It's a darker. This is about done blooming, but this is Cattleya trianae, Triani Mary Farrell, and a lot of them are white or yellow, and but this is a red one, and several Mary Farrells are even darker red than this.
That's nice. Well, when you get to dividing,
I'll
If
keep
you
you in
were
mind. Yeah, yeah. I'm not interested in accumulating a lot of these. So yeah, when I divide, I'm very willing to give them away. Actually, with just when it's easy to do. So, and I'll be dividing these when they finish blooming. Most of those will get repotted. So yeah, I'll keep you in mind.
very nice. Please.
Deanna, did you
Thanks
have
for sharing.
one?
Yeah,
Deanna, I think, has a plant.
Yeah, so my Psychopsis finally bloomed.
ah,
Wow,
nice.
look at that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Super excited.
How
yeah.
long is that the stem?
Oh, it's long. Hang on, I can measure. It's about 2.5 feet.
Wow,
Yeah.
Hey,
Cool.
don't
nice
cut it.
job.
Don't cut it. Let it grow because you may get another bloom off that stem. Be patient with it, and
It took forever to grow the stem. It took months.
Nice. Well done.
Nicely done.
Thanks.
We'll be looking for one of those probably at the show. Those are cool
I've
plants.
got one to show.
Okay,
Let's see, where am I?
you're there.
there you are. Oh,
Right.
nice. Yeah.
I
I can,
can't take credit for this. My friend Lori and I went out to the greenhouse open house 2 weeks ago. We promised not to buy anything, and we came home with 5 orchids. And this is, Sparky, Cymbidium Sparky. We just call him Sparky. And he was in spike, and he had 3, and now he's got 5 spikes, and 1 completely open,
Wow.
and
Wow.
1 starting to open, and 3 more to be seen. So
Nice.
I love
Where were you?
because they can live outside. I live in a condo, and my light stand is overwhelmed. So, but he had to come in for this fall, the last week
Yeah.
of bad weather.
Beautiful. Huh?
Cool. A really nice
The
one.
If I can
Cymbidiums,
bloom again, I'll be happy.
You know, the Cymbidiums will take a fair amount of cool weather. They don't really like it
But
freezing.
they won't take, they won't take 14.
No, no.
And my friend and neighbor Lori, who isn't here tonight, she also has a Sparky, and she's got a gorgeous Cymbidium ceragine, and we almost lost it in the heat a year ago when it went up to 118 on the deck.
Yeah.
So they have their issues, but they can always come in the living room temporarily.
Where did you say you got it from?
The Malala greenhouse open house a week ago at Bob's.
Yeah.
How was that? I wasn't able to make it myself. It was a good turnout. Looks like there's some good plants to be had.
But there were some nice plants. Yeah.
If you liked paphiopedilums, you would have been in heaven.
Yeah. I broke down and got one of the Dalgoldii that Teresa has. It's a huge yellow one with bright red stripes on it.
Yeah, there were some gorgeous ones there.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to keep those going.
I can keep them going, but they don't bloom for me. They-
Well, you're doing better than I am.
Did anyone else have a plant they wanted to show? No, no.
Well, a great presentation, Tyler.
Yeah, that was
Thank you very
nice.
much.
Yes,
That's
thank
it.
Well, thank you.
I'm
Maybe
guessing we all have photos of orchids filling up our phone. We just need to make them better, and
Yeah.
probably a lot fewer of them.
We just
Yeah.
point and shoot.
Yeah.
hence the iCloud full. Yeah, that's majority of my pictures. Yeah, no, I enjoyed presenting and maybe I was thinking we could do a photo contest here in the coming months, and I have lots of ideas around photos because I think, you know, it's one thing to share them in person, which is the best way, of course, but you know, if we had a collection from our society, we could maybe make like a calendar and sell them at the show and sale.
And wouldn't Instagram be a good forum for if we had a series of really good photographs?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening to the presentation. And like I said, I'll send out a follow-up with links and a video of the meeting so you can refer back to it. And if you weren't taking notes like everybody should, I never take notes.
Next month in person, we hope.
Yeah, yeah. So great to see everybody. I don't think I've been out of my house in a couple days, so nice way to get some social activity.
Yeah.
Good to see everyone's faces.
Take care.
Tyler. Well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
See you next
Bye.
time. Good night.